Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, this time about disturbing music. If you're new to the channel, then I'm really glad you're here. I don't know how you found me, but you're here, so thank you for that. And if you're coming back, you'll be surprised to see my face, because this video is the first one with a camera. And yes, I know that there's been hundreds of videos about this topic before, but I promise that this one is going to be a little bit different. How, you may ask? Well, I will actually speak about songs from other nations as well. I know it's crazy that there's a road outside of the US, but yeah. But no jokes aside now, I just quickly wanted to explain how this video is gonna work. So, originally I only wanted to talk about songs with a disturbing backstory, but after going through over research, over piles of distorted noise and over death metal grinding, I also decided to include songs that may not have a disturbing backstory, but they just agonize and they terrify you with how shocking they are. Honestly, some of the songs out there just cause pure devastation, but we'll get to that later. So the way this video is gonna work is basically, I'll give you guys some context behind the creation of the song, I'll give you some context about the author of the song, and so on, and at the end I'll actually play a bit of the song so that you guys can visualize what it actually sounds like. So, without further ado, let's move on to the list of the most disturbing songs. To understand why Plus Minus is disturbing enough to end up in this video, we first have to know a bit about the band itself. So let me fill you in on the context. Kaliber 44 was a Polish hip-hop band formed in 1994, which was just 4 years after the collapse of communism in Poland. As you can probably imagine, people living in Poland and all the other post-Soviet countries had it very rough. For half a decade, they've been exploited by the brutal Soviet Union, and the new democratic system created even more worries as radical changes had to be taken to free Poland from its communist path. Looking back at all of this, it really shouldn't come off as a surprise that the four band members, that is, Piotr Łuszcz, known as Magik, Marcin Martin, known as Abradam, Michał Martin, known as Joka, and Sebastian Felix, produced rather dark music. For them, music was a form of escape from the depressing reality of the 1990s in Poland. The then 18-year-old Magik and the remaining band members released their first album titled Księga Tajemnicza in 1996, and while it didn't receive any awards, it quickly became one of the most influential albums in Polish hip-hop. And on this note, it's worth adding that the band is actually given credit for the emergence of hip-hop in Poland. The album's dark and ominous elements are reminiscent of the situation of the band members and do a great job emphasizing the struggle that the 17 and 18-year-old band members had to endure. On this note, I would really like to recommend the album because honestly, it probably is one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time, at least for me. So please go check it out if you're interested. But okay, let's get to the topic of our interest. Why is this song so disturbing? I mean, sure, it's definitely a dark album, and as described as one of the band members, it is a dark psycho rap. But is that really it? Sadly, it is not. Following the short but incredibly fruitful history of Kaliber 44, which ended just 4 years after the formation of the band due to personal disagreements, the leading singer, Magik, would go on to create a band of his own, known as Paktofonika, and release one more album in 2000. While the album was clearly different from Magik's previous dark style, which could symbolize the separation from Kaliber, it's what happened after the release of the album that left not only his friends and family, but also thousands of fans all over Poland in disbelief. On 26 December 2000, just 8 days after the release of Kinematografia, Magik would commit suicide by jumping out the window of his apartment, leaving behind his wife and a 3-year-old son. And as dark as this may be, for obvious reasons, the song Plus I Minus, which was released all the way back in 1996 as part of the Księga Tajemnicza album, was quickly brought to public discourse as it allegedly contained hidden messages about the upcoming death of Magik. And just so that you guys know, we are entering conspiracy theory area now, so please don't take everything that I say for granted. The song Plus I Minus was allegedly written by Magik to announce his imminent suicide using backmasking, or the practice of hiding another message by playing the song backwards. And I know that all of this may sound completely ridiculous, but there are some questionable lines that are oddly related to the time and date of Magic's suicides, such as "just 4 more," which could indicate that Magic's death would occur in 2000s, or "Piotrek is dead," which is Magic's name. But enough of this conspiracy madness, here's a bit of the actual song. Suffer Little Children by The Smiths. The Smiths were an indie rock band formed in 1982 and they're regarded as one of the greatest bands of that time period. The song that interests us today was released as part of their debut album in 1984 and covers very dark topics including murder. Suffer Little Children ties directly into the tragic Morse murders, which was a series of targeted attacks spanning from 1963 to 1965. These unspeakable crimes were committed by Ian Brady and Mira Hindley in the region of Manchester. The total number of victims is believed to be 5, and at least 4 of those 5 were sexually assaulted as well. What's so dark about Suffer Little Children is that the authors didn't just take inspiration from the Morse murders. The song is quite literally describing the events of the Morse murders, and to make things even worse, they outright mention the names of the children killed and reference the acts committed by the murderers. In the song, we can hear lines like, "A woman said, I know my son is dead," and "Leslie Ann, with your pretty white beads. Oh John, you will never be a man, and you will never see your home again." Understandably, the song was met with hostility the second it released. Family victims and thousands of listeners accused the Smiths of being exploitative of the children's tragic fate, and some shops even refused to shelve anything the Smiths related. But I'll let you guys decide if it's actually that disturbing, so here's a little snippet of the song.
Over the moor, take me to the moor, dig a shallow grave and I'll lay me down. Over the moor, take me to the moor, dig a shallow grave and I'll lay me down. Leslie Ann and your pretty white beads, oh John, you'll never be a man.
Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique. Okay, so here's actually one of my personal favourites. Immortal Technique is a Peruvian-American rapper known for his highly political and controversial songs. Many of his songs are packed with strong messages, and I personally recommend you guys check out Open Your Eyes and The Third World. Anyhow, let's talk a little bit more about Immortal Technique himself, because his story is actually very interesting. So, having migrated to the US in 1980 to escape the Peruvian Civil War, the then 2-year-old Felipe Andres Coronel would experience firsthand the brutal reality of life in the US and quickly became familiar with the gangs of Harlem in New York, since that's where he would move. During his teenage years, he was arrested several times, and shortly after enrolling in Pennsylvania State University, he would go to prison charged with an assault-related offense for a year. His career as a rapper would begin shortly after his release from prison, when he wasn't able to find a job due to his criminal history and decided to start selling his music on the streets of New York. He would release his first album titled Revolutionary in 2001 without the help of a record label, and instead using his own hard-earned money gathered by winning rap battles. And it was this album that contained the song Dance with the Devil. So now that we know the context behind the creation of the song, what is it about that's so dark? Okay, I'll try to explain it to the best of my capabilities, but brace yourself because this song is probably the worst one on the list. Dance with the Devil tells the story of a young man named William who wants to prove to himself and his gangster friends that he is a real one. The whole song essentially tells us his life story and how he gradually became more and more blinded by the desire to be perceived as a real criminal, leading him to go from selling weed as a teenager to starting fights with innocent strangers and selling crack. And as dark as this may be, considering that this is probably the reality for thousands of people who are just raised up in the wrong environment, what's coming up next is absolutely fucking horrible, so brace yourself. Eventually, William would try to get respect from the bigger fish who weren't impressed with just selling drugs or starting fights. He is put to the test by the gangsters who tell him that he has to rape someone to be accepted into their group. And this is precisely what they do. After the act is committed, he is told to get rid of her, and I'll just play the last bit because it's honestly horrible. I don't even want to say it, so yeah, here it is.
Right before he pulled the trigger and ended a life, he thought about the cocaine with the platinum and ice, and he felt strong standing along with his new brothers, cocked the gat to her head and pulled back the shirt cover. But what he saw made him start to cringe and stutter, cause he was staring into the eyes of his own mother. She looked back at him and cried cause he had forsaken her. She cried more painfully, and when they were raping her, his whole world stopped. He couldn't even contemplate. His corruption had successfully changed his fate, and he remembered how his mom used to come home late, working hard for nothing, cause now what was he worth?
Yeah, I'll be completely honest, the first time my friends played me this song, I was in a very good mood. Laughing, joking around and stuff. Bro, after listening to this song, I just turned silent. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. And just to make it clear, Immortal Technique did say that he was there and he also committed the act, but in a later interview, he denounced it and said that the entire song is true, excluding the fact that he was there. Hamburger Lady by Throbbing Gristle. Okay, so just for a bit of a break, let's talk about some less gruesome stuff for a second. The Throbbing Gristle was an English industrial music band formed in 1975. While they were never able to reach the mainstream due to their rather esoteric and obscure music, they did achieve a pretty large following for an industrial music band. If I had to briefly explain the Throbbing Gristle to someone, artistic chaos would probably be the right thing to say. I mean, these guys are insane, and whether that means terrible or incredible, I'll let you guys decide. But this comment definitely does a great job at encapsulating the work of the Throbbing Gristle. Anyway, about the song. The first time I listened to it, it was like a fucking nightmare. I could just feel the suspense and the tension and stress building up in my brain, and it was not pleasant, I'll tell you that. But all negative feelings aside, even though I don't consider myself a fan of this genre and I really don't like industrial music, I do believe that the song has something, and it's definitely not the worst thing that I ever listened to. So if you're into any of that stuff, I would probably recommend them. So yeah, go check them out. What's interesting about Hamburger Lady in particular is that it doesn't contain any sudden climaxes or over-the-top screams. It's quite the opposite, since it consists mostly of very repetitive, same-pitched and slow-paced sounds played over and over again. And to top it all off, the monotone, lifeless voice in the background, which is terrifying in itself, tells us the story of a woman so extremely burned that she's described as a hamburger. Hence the title of the song, Hamburger Lady. Both the name and the lyrics of the song come from a poem written by Al Ackerman, and thank God it is not a real story. Oh wait, didn't I say at the start that we wouldn't talk about anything gruesome? Yeah, I apologies for that. But yeah, anyways, here's a snippet of the song. Daddy by Korn. Oh boy, we've got another classic. If you still somehow haven't heard of the song, then fucking brace for yourself, because it is probably the darkest it gets. Korn is an alternative metal band formed in 1993 by Jonathan Davis, James Schaffer, Reginald Arvizu, Brian Welch and Ray Lucier. And sorry for the pronunciation, I'm trying my best. Their debut album, titled Korn, was released in 1994, making Korn the pioneer of a new subgenre of metal, now known as nu metal. The whole album is very unique and contains a great mix of the classic metal loudness, powerful lyrics and incredible vocals from Jonathan. But what to me serves almost as a summary of this incredibly powerful, dark and passionate album is the last song titled Daddy. The entire song is over 17 minutes long, and to my knowledge, it's the longest song ever produced by the band, which really does show how important the song is to them. The whole album deals with many dark topics like substance abuse, loneliness and tragic childhood memories, but this one song in particular stands out in its level of darkness. and it does so by a colossal margin. It truly is the undefeated champion of the darkest music to be produced. The song Daddy is based on a real story recalled by the band's leading singer, Jonathan Davis, who experienced sexual abuse as a child. The song describes the event as if it was one of Jonathan's parents doing it, but he later explained that this horrible act was done by his babysitter. The reason behind this seemingly outrageous metaphor may be because Jonathan repeatedly told his parents back when he was still a child that he was being molested, but they refused to believe him. And I'll be honest, every single time I listen to this song, it sends chill down my spine. The fact that we can actually hear Jonathan slowly breaking down as the song progresses, which follows by a 4-minute long segment of him just straight out crying, is a level of darkness that very few things can achieve. It's also worth adding that Jonathan's breakdown was not staged in any way, and it actually did happen during the recording of the song, which to me is absolutely terrible and just very, very dark. Every single verse, every single line of the song is just filled with emotions, and you can just sense how much passion Jonathan put into writing this song. In all honesty, I genuinely believe that this may be one of the darkest songs to ever be produced. But enough of me talking, have a look yourself. And with that, we have reached the end of the list of the most disturbing songs to ever be produced. I really do hope that you liked this video and that it led you to some new authors that you haven't heard of but found interesting. Comment down below any songs that you think should be on this video, and maybe I'll do a part 2. As always, thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!